My first job was known as a creeler, which was putting the yarn onto the creels to be tied in to then be put onto the beams.
Went to Henley College for the first year, and you were based at Henley College full-time for that 1 year. I think I was also the last coppersmith within Coventry and within Courtaulds. I was the last trained apprentice coppersmith.
I started work at Courtaulds in 1974, straight from university in London.
My name is Davinder Prasad. The days I started, there weren't many Indians, and Indian names were not very common. And so my adopted name in Courtaulds was Dave Prasad. You know Dave Prasad.
I started working at Courtaulds straight from university in 1984.
I left school in 71 and did a little while at Further Education College as a lab technician, and then got that role in the SF lab in Courtaulds in 74.
I was there from 1961 to 1964. I folded a role in the experimental development partner.
I started in 1961 till 1964 at Little Heath. Then I moved to the main works in Lucas Lane from 1964 to 1969.
It was an apprenticeship that I did there as an instrument technician, and I started in 1985.
I started working in Courtaulds on June the 10th, 1974.
The 19th of September 1960. It was a Monday. I was in the drawing office on the first day, so I had to do 6 months in the drawing because I was a dressman apprentice. And that's why I was a late starter at 17. I had to get O-levels, going to secondary modern school. You got a school certificate, and I had to do 2 years. Get my O-levels to become a draftsman's apprentice.
Because later on, the job that I did folded, and we ended up moving to dispatch, so we had to then supply the spinning areas with the empty bobbins and empty cheeses. Ended up being a charge hand, and then I went from being a charge hand to, I would say, foreman, and ended up being in charge of my mother.
But at that time, you used to be able to walk into jobs. You knew that there'd be a vacancy there somewhere, you know, so just went and personnel saw me and I got the job.
I bought a pack of fish and chips, and it was the Telegraph was wrapped up, and they were looking for experimental fitters. Well, I was a qualified tool-making engineer. I'd always said they had very good class of work there, but it was experimental development, which was if you like, a hush-hush department, you know. So I went in and I had 3 interviews with the manager, the foreman, and they wrote and said to me, would you care to come? I came. So I left the job I was at, which wasn't very good, and I went there.
I got married in 1973, and my wife used to live just opposite to one of the fitters who used to work in Courtaulds. And my wife just asked him that, can you not give my husband a job? He said, oh yeah, I'll ask them. So he just asked the manager, and he came back and he said, okay, tell your husband to come down and have an interview, and you can go from there.
In those days, jobs were easy if anybody knew you in the work, so he got me to work with him. I used to do my best, 110%, and he was happy with my work, always. That's how I climbed up into Courtaulds in jobs. From shop floor, I end up as a ballistic tester.
At the end of my university degree, at that time there was what was called the milk round. So I had interviews with a variety of different companies, including Courtaulds, and I was invited for a second interview and was fortunate to receive a job offer as a chemical engineer.
First job in 1966 was an advertisement in a paper, and I went along and got the job, and I was secretary to the processing manager, and my main occupation was typing. No computers in those days, so it was all a physical, hard typewriter, and my main occupation was really looking after the boss and typing all his letters. And shorthand, obviously. He used to dictate them all to me, and then I used to type them. And I used to have a big book, which each leaf was a blotting paper sheet, and I used to put the letters between the blotting paper, and then take them to him at the end of the day, and he signed them all, and then I package them all up and take them off to the post.
Well, I was studying chemical engineering at university, and whilst at university there were sort of student sponsorships available. So I applied for some and I got a Courtaulds sponsorship. So when I graduated, I came and joined Courtaulds in Lockhurst Lane.
I think my first pay packet was around about £18. Again, you were paid cash. So you'd basically, I think it'd be on a Thursday lunchtime, go up to this wooden hut, and there'd be like steps up, you'd walk along and there'd be a window, the window would open, and I think it was Mr. Harvey himself, Ralph Harvey, the wages clerk, and he'd say name, clock number. Even though he'd know you, it would be the same all the time, name, clock number, sign here, and you'd get a brown envelope basically, and in the envelope would be cash, and just basically a small little kind of like wages slip basically. I think my pay slip was about £18 at the time, which is a lot of money, you know.
But they let you, they're very, very helpful to you, you know. But the thing was, it was regular money. Those days, it was but a bit of unemployment, but it was regular money. And towards the end of the year, there was plenty of overtime. I was paid £14, 14 shillings. That's for the first 6 or 7 months, yes. They were a bit mean with the money. They said, we're going to give you a rise, penny an hour.
Very few people ate at their desk for lunch, whereas now, complete flip. It's like everybody does. Well, very few take a break. Everybody took a break there. Now, whether it's because of the social club that was on hand, don't know, but a lot of us lads did. So I guess the minimum we'd have is a couple of beers every lunchtime. Occasionally 3, and Friday always 4. And then went back to work with our fags, working with the acetone and these hugely flammable stuff, staggering about the place. I don't know whether we staggered or not, but it was, just looking back, it's just unbelievable.
We used to have, the company had a children's Christmas party for children. They also had outings, tended to have parties Christmas time. The last shift that we was working, that was in the days when there wasn't a problem with drinking at work. The last evening shift of, say, your 2 till 10 shift before Christmas, all the machines would be switched off early and people could bring food and drink in. You got lots of different sorts of foods. You got Ukrainian, Italian, West Indian, Asian.
Certainly the Doncaster races are something we enjoyed for a long, long time, and it was all right while the husband and wives came, and then some of the young lads started coming, and it got out of hand on one occasion. And, not too much drink on the coach. It's a long way back from Doncaster. So I think that ended the Doncaster trip, because in the end the women called the tune.
They used to own about 78 or 79 houses around the town. What people, when you say designer went to work for Courtaulds, they said, oh well, we want you to come and design and do all the different things, or a manager or a chief foreman. They would say, well, we can give you a house. There were 78 houses around Coventry. I think they're all painted blue and white.
We'd all go and have a session with a chiropodist, which was very good. I mean, the surgery was there. Any problems, you could always go along to the surgery. I've used all their services, I think, over the time.
While I was there, they installed a gym, and they had a woman that was doing a PhD in physical fitness, and she studied us all as lab rats. You had to apply to get into this gym, and I got one of the places in this gym, and so they took all the measurements of your body and weighed you and everything, and would put you on a regime of weight training and see whether or not you put weight on and whether you put muscle on and things like that. So yeah, I was lucky enough to sort of have a part in that and be part of her study. So it was a benefit to us, but it was also her PhD study into a group of working people, and their lifestyle and, you know.
There are all sorts of schemes if somebody hit hard times, different schemes we could put people in touch with. So, yeah, it was a very caring company, I felt, yeah. And one of the first, well, when I joined the company, it had works counselling. So, you had works council, so people from your department would sit on a works council and you could influence how the social side was administered, yeah.
If there was any problems, there was always somebody at personnel you could go and talk to. If you'd got money problems, they could give you a short-term loan just to help tide you over.
Bear in mind, I was only 17 at this moment in time, and I was out at the social night in November. I got back to my digs, and outside the digs was a Humber Snipe, a black Humber Snipe, and they were driven by chauffeurs, and they would drive the senior directors around. And he was there, and the chauffeur said, "I've got some really bad news. Your father's had a serious road accident in Essex, on the road between Nonga and he said, I've been sent by Courtaulds to take you to the hospital." Now, I didn't think much about it at the time. Could be why I worked for him so long.
They were excellent, I tell you. That I'll never forget. They were all good to us. Even all the foremen, because there were 3-shift work, and you used to change every week, and you get different foremen. So they were all good.
I think they were very fair over the years, and all the managers that I knew, you could go and talk to them. You could go and knock on the office door any time, and they weren't just a manager, they were human, they were the same as you. It's different these days. Managers within big companies where I work now, they are slightly different.
There's some rose-tinted glasses going on here. There's no doubt about that. It's 40 years ago, and I'm sure there were things that absolutely riled us all to bits. But it's the experience of working at Courtaulds is very, very positive, hugely positive. And there must have been things that irritated us and went wrong, and of course there must. But the whole, that package was wholly positive.
I got my long service award for 25 years back in '93. Everything was free. You had afternoon tea and everything when you first arrived. Then you had your evening meal at night, breakfast the next morning. Obviously, there was the presentation of the long service awards.
I retired after 51 years, so it was the only experience I had in life. But Courtaulds gave me massive opportunities, because every time I nearly left, was getting older and pressures on family pressures and need for more money. It was almost as someone had predicted my next promotion. But I was always promoted within the same organisation, and I was given other things, so to sit on a joint board at one time. So it was almost as though there was someone. I never wanted to leave because I love the place. Yeah.
I was aware of there being a connection with the Courtaulds Gallery, although I don't think I've ever visited. Art isn't something that particularly interests a retired engineer or even a working engineer.
That absolutely, though, defines the scientific and the... there's no way I could hook that up. But I know my friends could. They'd be absolutely full of themselves in trying to pull that together. Not a chance I could do it.
I would like to buy that one, if I could afford it.